Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I'm your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and creator of the Salesology prospecting method. And I'm also known as the queen of cold calling. Today, my very special guest is Tom Kaiser. He is the managing partner of Masterful Coaching, and he has been the president of Global 1000 companies like AIG, Zurich, and Arkwright. He's an entrepreneur who helped turn Arch Insurance into a billion-dollar company from scratch. He is also the co-author of The Revenue Engine, How to Double Your Revenue and Transform Your Bottom Line. So I'm going to have to ask Tom that question. How do you double your revenue and transform your bottom line? And the red thread that runs through Tom's career is that he has dramatically increased the revenue of every company that he has worked with. So welcome, Tom.
Well, thank you for the warm welcome.
My pleasure. And so we will begin, Tom, as we always begin, which is at the beginning. Tell us your backstory. How did you, what was the path that led you to become the managing partner at Masterful Coaching?
Well, let me go way back, because when I got out of university, I became a KC-135 navigator in the U.S. Air Force. And I did that for 5 years. And I thought that I had really missed out on business. And so when I went looking for a job after I got out of the Air Force, I wanted to sell something, and I wanted to sell something that was expensive. And it led me to a company called Arkwright Mutual, where the guy who ran it was a B-29 pilot, and the number 2 guy was an F-105 pilot. We talked airplanes, and they hired me, and that started my sales career. And everything sort of pivoted and moved forward because I was very good at it. I moved fast through the corporate hierarchy, and that was the beginning. Now, as far as Masterful Coaching, I teamed up with Robert Hargrove, who is the head of Masterful Coaching, after he helped me several years ago put together some unique selling propositions for one of the companies that I worked with. So I'm sort of semi-retired, if you will, and working as a managing director with Robert Hargrove and Masterful Coaching.
And doing podcast interviews. Can't forget that.
Okay.
So I'm curious, what did your background in the Air Force teach you about sales?
Well, I think it taught me teamwork, because when you're in a flight crew, you all have to work together if you're going to get the mission accomplished. And everybody has a role to play, but they all have to come together to make sure that you're going in the right direction. So it taught me alignment. It taught me the process. And it taught me that you had to rely on a team if you're really going to be successful.
All right. Because I was reading on your website, you have some guiding principles for becoming a great leader. And the teamwork is definitely one of them. So could you share a little bit about do's and don'ts in terms of building that team and making it an effective team? And how do you manage that teamwork without trauma?
I think trauma is part of the process, but I think all successful leaders come to a point where they realize they have to align the people they're working with behind them. And there's an old saying in Alice in Wonderland that if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And a good leader will align people and have them going in the direction that needs to be taken. And one of the things that really is key to this is early on figuring out if you have the right people. Because if you don't, if you have the wrong people, and it's like pulling a wagon with four powerful horses, if they all want to go in different directions, you pull the wagon apart. You don't go forward. So the first principle is get the right people. And if you got the wrong people, get some new people, because you're not going to be successful if you got the wrong followers.
I love that. So how do you, one, get the right people, and how do you figure out quickly, because I would imagine that's key, is figuring out quickly if you've made a poor hire?
Well, I think the principle is to make sure that people are aligned behind what your vision is or what you're trying to accomplish. And if you find out that people aren't, that's when you have to make some changes. One of the things that we use to enhance revenue, and you alluded to that in the beginning, is we try to convince every company we work with that everybody needs to be in sales. That it's not just a sales department. It's not just some people who, oh, they're the salespeople, I don't have any responsible. It's the IT department. It's the collection department. It's the accounting department. It's the financial people. It's everybody. And they all have to buy into that they're part of this company. They're part of this mission, and that they're going to do what they need to do to be successful and to carry out the mission. And revenue can increase when you expand your sales force without expanding your expenses. And the way you do that is by empowering everyone to accept the fact that they're in sales. And you probably know better than anyone that a lot of people like to say, I'm not in sales. I don't do that. Or they use the analogy of used car salespeople or other people that they think are too pushy or too aggressive or what have you, to say that's why I'm going to be over here in the accounting department.
Yeah, I'm actually on a mission to destroy that stereotype. I'm with you. Everyone's in sales, or they should be.
Yes.
The thing
that's how you build alignment, and that's how you generate enhanced revenue, because all of a sudden you have an army working for you instead of a department, and people are aligned because they believe in the mission, they believe in the product, they believe in you're trying to accomplish.
Yes, let's reclaim the word salesperson. Let's just reclaim it. But one thing I am curious about, because what I see in my world is salespeople that don't actually think part of their mission is selling, apparently, because I have clients that will come to me and say they've got this salesperson, the person's been there for like 7 or 8 years and they're not producing. And of course, my first question is, what are they still doing there? But how do you avoid when you're hiring for your team and you've got to hire the salespeople, or any words of wisdom to avoid that scenario?
Well, it starts with the interview. And the first question is, do you really want to be in sales? Do you know what it means? Are you committed? And I think you have to ferret out whether the person is really committed to going in that direction. And then you've got to have the right metrics. And you have to provide coaching. I think one of the big principal things that many sales management fall down on is they're not coaching their people. They have metrics, they look at different things, but they never talk to them. They never go in and really say, how can I help you make this happen? And I like to say the difference between a manager and a coach is a coach wants you to win versus a manager who tends to just want to check the boxes. And if you're coaching, you're asking the right questions, you're involved in the sales process with that employee, and you're going to find out whether they're committed or they're not. And you're going to find out pretty early. And you have to make the moves. You can't let somebody stay for 7 years. That's not going to be productive. It's not good for them. It's not good for you. And And it begins with hiring the right people, but you're not always going to be successful. And I can tell you from my experience, if you have one person in an organization that needs to have highly coordinated alignment and teamwork who is not with the program, they can cause unbelievable harm to the effort that you're trying to accomplish.
Agreed.
We call them toxic people, but you just have to make those moves and you have to be fast about it. And I think what you were saying is that a lot of people are just too slow.
Oh, yeah. And I have made that mistake myself. I am not blameless here. I had somebody that I really liked, and I kept her around for a really long time because I really liked her. It was a mistake. So I have learned from my mistakes too.
And I think the other thing is that you should not hesitate to look at roles and responsibilities and maybe modify them if necessary. And I can think of, in the insurance business that I was in, it was all corporate and very complicated customers and accounts. And there were some people who were very good at servicing business. And the customers loved them. And putting them in a service role with a different job description was a good move. And
Yes.
not having the expectation that everybody's going to go out and prospect and bring in the new customers, whether they can close or any of the other things that are significant for a successful sales career.
It's true. Not everybody is a hunter. So I want to ask you, because you said this idea of having everyone on the team, regardless of what their job role is, everyone is a salesperson. And that's going to increase revenue without having to hire more salespeople. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Like if you're an accountant, you're the bookkeeper. How does that increase revenue for the company?
Let's start with the chief financial officer in a company. I would say to the chief financial officer, with his staff or her staff, that you're responsible for reaching out to our major customers in their departments, their finance departments, and having a dialogue with them about how our products work and what we're doing for that company, and to build a relationship with those people. That's your sales responsibility. So that the 10 top CFOs of our 10 top customers, and that you're interacting with those people. And I would say the same to somebody in IT or somebody in any other department, maintenance departments, you name it, that their role is to help in this process by knowing their counterparts. And I'm a strong believer of Miller Hyman's sales training, where he uses the word coaches, technical buyers, economic buyers. And these are all not necessarily the economic buyers that we're talking about. We're talking about the user buyers and the technical buyers. They influence things, and they need to be touched, and they need to be brought into the equation.
Okay.
And you can scale that down. There's no reason why assistants can't be coaches by getting to know the assistants in the companies that you're working with or the customers that you're dealing with.
Okay. So what are some other do's and don'ts about increasing revenue? What should these, entrepreneurial leaders be thinking about?
Well, I think they should be thinking about everything as inclusive and not trying to exclude people. They shouldn't allow their organizations to develop into silos that are barriers to communications. And if they spot those things happening, they should do something about it. An analogy I like to use, being in New York, and I spend most of my time in Miami, you go to restaurants a lot. Well, probably one of the best restaurants experiences is when the chef comes out and goes and talks to the customers. He's not only building a relationship, but he's selling, and he's increasing the effectiveness that his organization is going to do well. And that's what we try to convince people in all organizations they need to do.
And is that a hard sell or an easy sell in your experience?
I think it can be a wow sell once people get what we're talking about. But they haven't been trained to think that way. They think of their discipline, or they think about, my job is to analyze the statistics of this and to report it to management, not to be engaged in something else. So it's really breaking down norms that have been allowed to develop that are detrimental to revenue growth. And we just try to take the blanket off and show people that you can increase your revenues without increasing your expenses. And you got it all right there. You just got to work it. You got to coach it. You got to stay with it, and you got to constantly talk about it.
Okay, I like that.
And I used to use very simple terms when I was in sales management. I used to say that our job is to get and keep customers at a profit. That's what we do.
Yeah, very true. So we are going to pause now for a word from our sponsor. But then when we come back, I'm going to hold Tom's feet to the fire a little bit. I want to know some more about the guiding principles for being a great leader. But now we have a word from our sponsor, the Salesology Vault. Just about every guest that I've interviewed on the Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders podcast has had a free gift for our listeners. And that does include my special guest today, Tom Kaiser, managing partner of Masterful Coaching. And so what we've done is we've taken all of those gifts and we put them all in one place just for you. We call it the Salesology Vault. And it's packed full of free gifts from sales leaders, sales experts, marketing gurus, revenue generation experts. And we add another gift every single week. We release a podcast every Monday, and we add a gift. So you can log in as often as you'd like and download as many gifts as you'd like. It's all free. The link to the Salesology Vault is in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the notes, click on the link, download your gifts. You'll be glad you did. And I am back with my special guest, Tom Kaiser, who is the managing partner of Masterful Coaching. And I want to talk a little bit, Tom, about your guiding principles for becoming a great leader. And I noticed that your principle number one was to find your hero with noble ideals and ideas. So I'm curious who your hero is and why did you pick that person as your hero?
Well, I think I've had several heroes in my career. I've been lucky to be involved with some very powerful and successful business people. But I think one of my first heroes was my sales manager at Arkwright, who taught me to be persistent and never to give up. And some of my other heroes were Hank Greenberg at AIG, who was a brilliant business person, and the group of people that I worked with when we started Arch Insurance, because that was a startup from the beginning. There was nothing there except a good marketplace and a bunch of people that wanted to make it work. But I think it's not only have a hero. Good leaders are trusted people, just like good salespeople are. You build a good relationship, and you're trusted by your customer. You're going to have a long-lasting relationship. The same thing goes with a good leader. Good leader is a trusted person. They care about their people, and I think I equate good leadership to good coaching, where I think I mentioned this before. They want you to win. A good leader wants the team to win, and they're not just a manager. They're out there helping the process.
Okay, so why is it important, though, to have a hero?
It's a way that you can see and build your vision and your message, because you're taking and being motivated by the success of someone else and bringing it in and focusing it so that you can be successful yourself.
So it sounds to me like you're almost saying you're following somebody else's path until you figure out one of your own. Would that be accurate?
I would say that you're on a road that could have a Y in it, but you're using your hero as a way to get started down that road.
Okay. And then I know your second principle was take a stand for something larger than yourself. And what exactly does that mean?
Well, we like to call that the impossible future. And that if you take goals and you magnify them and think out of the box, get people aligned behind you, you're going to accomplish a lot more than you are if you just incrementally try to do things. So we believe in big goals, a big future, almost an impossible future, as a guiding principle to leadership.
Okay. And so I know, Tom, you have a gift for all of our listeners. So would you share details of your gift?
Sure. We have a book called The Revenue Engine. It's a ebook, and it really goes into a lot of the important conversations we believe are important for good salespeople. In fact, we call it the 12 catalytic conversations, and those are all discussed in pretty good detail within that book. And I think from the beginning salesperson to the one who's been a master salesperson, they can get something out of reading through this book. And we're providing it for free to any of your listeners.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. And what we are doing is we are putting the link to Tom's book, The Revenue Engine. We are putting that link in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link, download the book. And Tom, where can people find you? If people want to connect with you, where can people find you?
Well, they can find me at masterfulcoaching.com, or they can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay. And again, in case you weren't able to quickly write down that URL, if you'd like to connect with Tom, the link to Masterful Coaching is in the show notes, along with the link to Tom's LinkedIn profile. So if you want to connect with Tom, as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link. You'll be glad that you did. And thank you all for listening to today's podcast, today's episode of Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, with my very special guest, Tom Kaiser, who is the managing partner of Masterful Coaching. And if you found value in listening to today's podcast, then please think about one business leader, one business owner, an entrepreneur, somebody that you know that you think might also find value in listening to this podcast, and please do share the link with them. And until we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.